everyone. Welcome back to The Dish. Okay, so this next topic is also a difficult one to discuss due to the circumstance, but here to talk to us about it is Mr. Sam Nicholson from Nicholson Revell Law Firm. Now, we're talking here about situations of wrongful death. Now, that is, obviously the circumstances can, be a little touchy, but describe for us or define for us what that is exactly.
Yes, absolutely. So wrongful death is when someone has died as a result of the negligent or intentional actions of another person or entity. So that's generally when someone's died and it was someone else's fault that they died, is when that will give rise to a wrongful death case.
Right. And so the next question I was going to ask you is to give an example. Can you give, and I know that you probably can't air out obviously specifics, but could you give an example so that people can kind of put it together in their mind?
Yes, absolutely. Generally what we see the most is either in a car wreck situation where there's been a terrible car wreck where someone has died as a result of the other person's negligence. We also see them in medical cases where there may be a medical error. So those are the types of cases that we see wrongful death arise many times.
And tell me about who can file this lawsuit, because obviously if the individual is deceased, who actually pursues this type of case?
So that's a good question, and in Georgia the wrongful death is vested in the surviving spouse.
Okay.
So that's who is by statute is allowed to bring the case. If there's not a surviving spouse, then one of the children can bring the case, and if there are no children, then you can have an estate set up for that person, and the administrator of the estate can bring the wrongful death case.
Now, obviously, this type of case is a pretty heavy one.
Yes.
So what do the damages look like with something like this?
So in Georgia, it's a little bit unique in that the damages for a wrongful death case are the full value of the life of the decedent through the eyes of the decedent. So it's not what other people think that person's life is worth. It's, you got to try to prove what the decedent's life was worth to him or her, which is really kind of interesting, but I think it's actually better than some other states in that regard.
And one, speaking of proving, how do you prove a case like this? I mean, I'm sure that's very tricky, right?
It absolutely is very tricky, and you have to use relationships that the decedent has had through their life, what was important to them, their work, their family, their church, other things that were important to that person, and that way you can try to prove to the jury what that life was worth, which is a cold way to look at it, but unfortunately it's, that's what we have to do when we get into court.
Right, and then in the case of, the doctor that's maybe being sought after, I mean, this we're dealing with most of the time negligence, hopefully not intentional, but how do you prove that?
So so that would be step one, is the first thing you've got to do is prove that someone did something wrong.
Right.
So that's the first part, and then the second part, if you can achieve that hurdle, you've got to then prove what that life was worth.
Wow, and so tell me about the timing of this. So if someone were to pass and you're pursuing a case like this, how long does somebody have after that death to pursue it?
So you've got 2 years from the date of the death to file a wrongful death case. So that's there are some exceptions, but that's the general rule, is that you've got 2 years from the date of death to file your case.
Okay. Well, George, thank you so much. I say George, but it's Sam, right? You
right. Either one.
Junior, George,
right.
Sam.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for walking us through that. Again, I know it's a difficult thing for people to talk about, and so if you guys have any questions, you can visit NicholsonRevell.com for more information. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks so much again.
Thank you very much.
You guys don't go anywhere. When we come back, our life hack expert, Reva, is going to be joining us for some travel tips.